but people will come in because I'm conscious we've got an hour and there might be some, let me close that. There might be some questions and then whoever comes in, comes in. So first of all, I'm going to give Amy an intro because she definitely deserves a fab intro. But I've been really looking forward to this workshop because I feel like parenting with ADHD, parenting when we've got ADHD and potentially parenting children with ADHD, but also the generational aspect of parenting potentially when we've had dysfunction in our family, when there's been undiagnosed neurodivergence in the family. There's so many different layers, and I do believe very much that we are a generation where sort of like breaking ancestral kind of cycles and really understanding ourselves for the first time, so we can understand perhaps how we were parented and maybe give more compassion, but also understand like there's different ways of parenting when we know we've got a child with neurodivergence as well. So I do definitely believe that so much of this is all about compassion, but this is definitely Amy's bag, and the reason why I'm going to read Amy's bio because it's fantastic. But we've connected before, and I've always really loved what you do because it's all about conscious parenting. And I know that you were trained under Dr. Shafali, who I completely adore. She's like one of Oprah's right-hand women. I mean, she's always on Oprah. Incredible, amazing podcast, amazing video, books. She is literally knows everything there is to know about conscious parenting. So Amy's trained underneath her. And
so
also,
I know everything.
Well, you've trained into someone fantastic, and also Amy's got a really good awareness of ADHD and neurodivergence as well. So Amy's role as a therapeutic parenting coach is to reprogram habitual patterns that are no longer serving us in the present when it comes to our relationships with our children. And using action-based therapy, Amy works with clients to identify past trauma, joining the dots, examining, exploring, and understanding that what may have worked for us before may now be serving as our biggest hurdles in our relationships. That's really big. And in her personal approach to conscious parenting, Amy explores how you can be more mindful, more authentic, and more connected in your parenting journey, developing and nurturing the benefits of personal growth and awareness. And Amy works closely with one-to-one clients and also group programs to develop the tools and strategies to enable forward movement and make meaningful change. We're so talking the same language here because it's very much what we do in this community. So thank you so much, Amy. I'm like delighted. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about practically how you help, and then we can go into kind of, I've got some questions for you, but also maybe anything that you want to share before we get going.
First of all, it's so funny listening to you, like me being spoken about in front of me. It's really kind of like slight out of body experience whenever that happens. Like, oh, that's me. And I agree with you. What I love about the work that you do, we're just going to have a little bit of a love fest here, is one of my big bugbears is just how kind of defeatist people are about neurodivergence, and they just go, right, and it's like, heavily medicate and just like, let's try and pretend it's not happening. And that's just like so not the approach that you have with your community and the way you talk on your Instagram and your podcast. It's kind of like, how can we be nurturing? The way I like to see it, and I see it with my clients, is how can we nurture the gift rather than how can we stop the problem? Mm-hmm. And so that I always love the way you're always stepping in with these incredible ways to support how we are, mm-hmm, rather than trying to stop who we are.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I'm trying to do for help parents to do with their kids. Like, stop trying to stop the problem. Let's try and understand the person. So I think we're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone's kind of coming, to this workshop and watching back, and they're kind of thinking, what is conscious parenting? What's the difference between parenting and conscious parenting? And how can we bring more conscious parenting into our life, into our job, in our roles as parents?
Okay, so another bugbear I have is the language in the wellness industry. So conscious parenting, it's like, it sounds intimidating. It already sounds like it's something we can't do. It's like, oh shit, I can't do that. That sounds like something that like a special talent people have. It's not, it's just consciousness. It's about conscious parenting, being aware of how we're parenting. And we are bombarded, as this generation specifically, we are bombarded with podcasts, with social media, with books, with expectations, with all of our own shit from our own childhoods. Generationally, transgenerationally, there's scientific proof that, you know, we're genetically affected by what our great grandparents experienced in life. So we've got all of this, and if we just live our lives without questioning how we're showing up as a parent, and we're just ticking boxes of like, right, okay, we've got to get them to the best school, right, okay, you've got the best education, they've got to get the best grades, they've got to get the best job, that'll make good kids. None of that is about learning about the person you're raising. None of that is about putting yourself into a relationship with the child. So when I talk about conscious parenting, it's like, let's get aware of the things that get in the way of the decisions that we're making, aware of the social expectations that are surrounding us, and how we are being manipulated and conditioned to believe things that we don't necessarily believe or think is right for our kids. Get conscious on our own wishes and aspirations we have for ourselves that didn't kind of work out, that we might be projecting onto our children, especially when you're looking at something like neurodivergence, right? Let's say you've just found out in later life that you have ADHD, Asperger's, whatever it might be, right? That's all well and good, but you have been raised a certain way to have certain belief systems conditioned by the way people interacted with you, have certain beliefs around what is right and wrong, what is good and bad from what you were told. And then you're raising a child who isn't necessarily neurodivergent, but anything that they're reflecting to you that you did as a kid that you were shamed for, you're going to try and shut down without even stopping to look at, well, what is the behavior? Why is the behavior actually happening? Is this even a negative behavior? Is this behavior impacting them negatively? You know, coming into that awareness of, well, hang on a second, because of these symptoms that might not have been so palatable for people around me when I was growing up, I've got a lot of beliefs around who I am as a person and what is the right or wrong way to show up in the world. And if I don't become aware of what those are, how they felt for me as a child, and how I feel about those things now as an adult, we're just going to push them all onto our kids. And that just causes shutdown with our kids. Our kids just look at us like, you haven't got a clue. You don't understand me. I'm not lazy. Classic, right? I'm not lazy. I'm just not interested in that.
Mm.
But if you've been pushed and pushed and pushed because you found it difficult to focus, and you found it difficult to concentrate, and your dialogue around you was, oh, she's all over the place and she doesn't care about anything, all of this, you go, oh my God, my kid doesn't care about anything. Oh my God. No, that's none of that's true. Strip away the stories and get conscious of your actions towards your children. And then you can be in relationship with your child. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much. You know, like straight away, I'm kind of like thinking, because we do project, don't we? And unless we're intentional and conscious about it, you know, I hear myself saying the same things that my mum used to say.
Oh,
Like, oh, that looks great on me. Why am I saying that? Even though I know that I am parenting differently to my mum, and I have to say there has been sort of consciousness around that. But there's also, I always kind of think, is it just a generational thing for our kids to then go, I'm not going to parent like that? Like, is that always going to be the case? Or
probably
it's about evolving and learning and developing as well, isn't it? Like, you know, 20 years ago, all these phrases and everything, but we are learning, you know, and in 20 years time, what we probably look back on now and the terminologies that we use and everything will be like, I can't believe how outdated that was.
Yeah.
So is there a level of compassion that we are doing the best that we can with the resources that we've currently got? And I guess we can look at that with our parents, but what level do we then start thinking, okay, no, things need to change?
I think things always need to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I looked at my child and she didn't wanted to parent exactly the same way I did, I'd be going, I have fucked up. Would be the first, like, I would, on the one side of me, one part of my personality be like, that's amazing. I'm the best mom in the world. I'm amazing. She thinks I'm perfect. There would be something so codependently wrong with that relationship in itself. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we are evolving as, let's take our intellect out of it on an energetic, esoteric, you know, universe level. We are evolving as animals every generation that goes past. What we're up against with this generation is that they are exponentially evolving compared to us. So I feel like there's always been, I have huge compassion, and this, people would not believe this, because most of my work is inner child work. Everything I do is like, right, let's go right back to the beginning and work out what it was that your parents did that made you like this. But it's from a compassionate perspective, because no parent, even the worst imaginable parent, was doing the absolute best they could in that moment with the resources that they had. They were doing the best they could, even if it was shocking. They're just doing the best that they can. Everyone's just doing the best that they can. And as the generations go on, it's just a matter of looking at going, okay, well, that was the behavior you were surrounded by and that you were interacting with, and these were the coping mechanisms that you developed. Blame isn't really a part of it. If anything, what we need to let go of is the anger that we might have at a family member for why we are how we are in the moment, because that just holds us back from growth. It's literally the one thing that stands in the way of growth. Like, I adore my father, definitely undiagnosed Asperger's. Now, I can come from an even bigger space of compassion with the knowledge that I have now, because I can see it. As a child, it was very difficult to be trying to interact with an emotionally detached human being, and he doesn't love me, and it means I'm this, and I grew up with issues around men. All okay, fantastic. Maybe all of those things are true. The knowledge of it just helps us to be present and conscious in the moment of our coping mechanisms and how we can interact with those and make change, positive change. So it's not about, we only need to know what came before so we can see ourselves consciously in the moment to make shift. Otherwise, we're just a victim.
Yeah.
And that's with ADHD diagnoses and things like that. That's the double-edged sword, isn't it? Is that sometimes it can feel a bit like you're being stuck in a place unless you are able to use it as the gift that it is and go, well, okay, so how can I look at the duality of each and every symptom I have? Because there's magic in some of it and challenge in some of it. And I can make the choice to stay in the challenge and be like, oh, well, this is because I've been diagnosed, this is who I am. Or now I have this knowledge of this limitation that I have. How can I best serve myself in enabling myself to function at optimum within that?
Yeah, it's so powerful. And it's literally, just thinking about that, because we do know with ADHD and potentially with autism as well, that it is genetic. It's sort of like an 88-90% genetic trait. So there's very high chance that if we've been diagnosed, we've got a parent that's probably undiagnosed, whether they choose that, and we've probably had a child diagnosed, which has instigated our diagnosis. That typically is the way it goes. And so when we look at it like this, there's a spectrum going on of different, situations, neurodivergence. And, for you to be able to look at your dad and you had all these stories and you had all of these beliefs that have been part of your makeup, I guess. It's been part of the way you kind of grew up and the way you interact with other in relationships, to then give yourself that compassion that actually that wasn't your fault. That was just something else. It's a massive release, isn't it? And the victim, and I think again, it's kind of going like, well, how can I now make this better? How can I make my life better? And how can we then, as parents who are parenting challenging children, then not be re-triggered, re-instigated, put back in those positions as us as children, if you know what I mean? Because I know it's all interconnected, isn't it?
Oh, well, there's the fear element when you see your child doing what you did and what you were shamed for. So it's actually a protection mechanism for you and them. It's like, oh my God, I've got to stop this. They can't show up in the world like this. This is going to get them nowhere. That's where the consciousness comes in, because it's not that doing the work around conscious parenting means that thought won't come up. It's having enough space and awareness that thought comes up and you can go, that's not real. That's not the situation I'm dealing with. I don't need to stop a behavior. I need to understand a behavior.
Can you give us an example? Is there a practical example as to like something that you can think of where we can be in that moment and we can stop the thought and pause and know that we aren't our child?
Okay,
and I'm a parent.
it's going to be a generalization, right? Yeah. So, okay, let's use the typical super judgmental, because usually it comes from external judgment as well. We kind of lock down when we think there's external judgment, and that is a really human reaction, because external judgment is like, you know, possible kind of like being thrown out. I can't think of the word right now, but being like thrown out of the tribe. Like if I'm judged or my child is judged, then we're all going to be pushed away. We're going to die outside the caves, basically, right? So let's say you've got your 5-year-old who by now should be able to sit at a table, right? That's our classic. And they can't sit still. You've got a family lunch. So you've tried to avoid the family lunch because you know that your kid can't sit still at the table, but you've got a big family and it's your grandma's 80th and everyone's going and you're sitting there, and you know, the starters are taking ages to come. And if you're both neurodivergent, you're probably really struggling to sit still as well. You don't want to be there either. And it's all like, oh my God, it's taking long. It's all building up inside. And you're literally watching this small volcano that is about to go. And so there's two things that happen in that moment. First of all, your energy is shot to shit because you're waiting for it to happen and they're about to go. But the example of it is, the story that starts to come up in the head is, I should be able to control this. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be more mature. So you're already bullying yourself because you're already telling yourself that your own issues shouldn't be presenting in that moment, right? And everyone's going to judge me, and I'm a terrible mum because I'm not going to be able to hold this together, and I know they're going to go, and all the energy is getting tighter and tighter. And then he goes, okay, and he's running around the restaurant, and he can't deal with himself, and he can't rein himself in. And what we tend to do in that moment as the parent is try and shut down the behavior. I'll do anything I can just to get him to sit back down on that chair. Never going to happen, because you're locked in a story and you're locked in just trying to stop, rather than taking that breath, understanding and remembering that this means nothing about who he is as a person. It means nothing about who you are as a mother. And actually, you've been sitting down for 40 minutes. He's done amazing. What does he really need in this moment? He doesn't need to sit back down and make everyone else feel comfortable. He needs to go for a walk around the block. And he needs to do that even if everyone else in the room feels uncomfortable and has a judgment about it. What is best for him? What is best for him will mean he then calms down and you then calm down. You probably needed to walk around the block as well. And it's that consciousness of really, really zoning in on, I'm not looking at stop, I'm looking at why. And I can see why what's happening is happening, because these are his needs. And I might not like in my life that I have a child that has these needs that might be slightly more magnified than other kids' needs in certain areas. But he does. So I can make a choice to meet those needs, or I can make a choice to try and pile him into a little Tupperware box and close the lid. Now, I know which one is going to work out in terms of family harmony, confidence, resilience, this child's own self-awareness of what they can and can't manage, their own limits, their ability to understand what's possible for them, their self-esteem, because they're not being shamed for it, because they don't end up being that kid sitting at the table thinking I should have a handle on this. They know. And yes, some people aren't going to like it, but you know what? No one has everyone in life liking them. If everyone in life likes you and no one in life has a problem with you, you're the problem, because you're just basically being a chameleon to be what everybody else needs. And that's a whole other, that's a whole other workshop we can do. But at the end of the day, if you've got a couple of people that can't be around you because you need to get up in the middle of a meal and do something, or you can't sit through whatever, or you find it really, or you might get aggressive to this or that or whatever, people aren't supporting you, you can't be friends with them. That's life. Not everyone's for everyone. So we need to get kind of, I know I'm kind of rambling off on one because I'm very passionate about it. But I see neurodivergence as a skill. I think it's like you're the luckiest person in the world, because it means that you've got so much more, and actually we should be trying to help everyone that's in their Tupperware to get the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Be a bit more interesting.
Yeah, what you were saying then about the shame, it's that shame, isn't it, of like the fear of judgment. It's being looked at like you haven't got control over your child, and then it's reflecting back on our parenting. And like you say, you know, to expect a child to sit at a table for a long period of time anyway and not be fidgeting and not want to get up and play and do all of that is ridiculous. So, you know, all the conformities around that is, you know, straight. And I do kind of think a little bit about certain members of my family who see any form of meltdown, any form of different behavior, any form of just not conforming as like, what's wrong with you? Like, they should be doing this. That's not how to behave. And that's historic. And I see where that comes from. And it's up to us to break those patterns. It's up to us. And I think with the awareness that we are now understanding about ourselves, it helps break those patterns. But that shame comes back to, you know, bite us, you know, especially when you're in a restaurant. And I'm sure all of us, if you know, if we're parents here listening now, we've done that gritted teeth, like, sit down now.
And the eyes.
Yeah. You know, and my kids, you know, who are older, they're on TikTok and they send me funny videos of like mum things that mums do, and they do like the gritted teeth, like talking, and I'm like, oh my God, that is me, because I've done that. It's like, do not do this here. This is not the right time to do this. But you can't control a meltdown. Like, you can't control when a child is just going to be like, this is too much. There's too much stimulation. And interestingly, now a couple of my kids recognize, like, we're in a loud restaurant and there's too much going on and there's noise and there's music and it's crowded and it's hot. I don't want to be here, mum. I don't want to be here. This is not, I've realized it's not, you know, it's not nice or pleasant for anyone. I thought this was going to be like a family bonding, you know.
Is it worse? It's horrible.
So yeah, and so we've recognized now that, you know, some families, okay, fine, they can sit around a dinner table and there's no meltdowns and there's no children kicking off. But for us, it's
what these families you speak of.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so we try now, and I've realized that the more I understand what I don't particularly like sitting long periods of time around a table, you know. What do I like? I like going for a walk and talking to my friends. I don't want to sit in a hot, stuffy coffee shop and be like, you know, I'm getting a bit touchy, and this. Going for a nice long walk and a coffee, fabulous. That's perfect.
That's also consciousness, right? If you think you have that awareness and you just kind of go, comes down to work as well. Let's look at that kind of all that social structure and expectation about like working and how kids should work and how we should work as adults, and kids should come home and want to do homework and all of this stuff. And you've got a neurodivergent kid and they can't work that way. And all we try and do is try and work out, how can we get them to work that way? No, we need to understand why, because everyone's divergence is different. Why can't they work in that way? Whether it's they can't sit down for that long, or they can't concentrate for that long, or the words are jumping around on the page, or whatever it might be. Their hand hurts. My son's dysgraphic. He actually can't write for long periods of time. We need to understand why, and then we need to be focusing more on what our child needs in order to help them function at optimum. And generally, when we're conscious about what we need, and I bet you, Kate, cannot sit for long periods of time and stare at a computer for long periods of time, and the things that you need to do to bring you back into balance to be able to focus again, that consciousness of yourself, you can bring to the table for your child. And that when your teenager is not working, not focusing, failing at school, that is a great big acting out in a more adult way. And rather than just like, well, how can we get them to concentrate? It's like, well, what's going on? Where are they struggling? Which bits are difficult? And when we need why, let's listen. Let me connect to you. Let me understand where your struggles are. Let me understand, relate, remember how it was for me, and meet you where you are. And together we can. And then all you're doing is constantly helping them, like you have been, Kate, with your kids, where they can turn up and go, now I know this needs to change, and I know that needs to change. And that's the best foundation and groundwork to raise a child into being an adult, to give them that self-knowledge. Yeah.
So you're saying, it's the empathizing, it's the validating, it's the acknowledging, and then it's like, right, how can we work together? Like, how can we do this? But I think, like you say, the education system is so broken. And so we are sending our kids to schools where neurodivergence, unfortunately, is still like, oh, you know, what's wrong? Go to the SEND department, you know, that person. And even our kids who are, you know, this generation where very accepting, I know that when my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, she was embarrassed, she was ashamed, she didn't want people to know. And I was just thinking, oh my God, this is another generation where there's this shame attached to it. And she said, but then everyone's going to know because I'm going to have to ask for extra time. And everyone knows because I have to sit at the front of the class so I can concentrate better. And I'm like, my heart breaks because I just want her to be like, well, it's fine, you know, like I get extra time, brilliant. You know, I sit at the front of the class so I can, you know, I can hear the teacher and hopefully sort of retain the information. But that level of shame, unfortunately, is still being sort of projected from the mainstream schools.
We can meet it though. It is, but it's you know what, embarrassment and shame is also part of our growth journey a little bit. Like, you know, 11, she was 11, wasn't she? 10, 11 when she was done.
11,
key time of everything. I just don't want to be different from anyone. Right. And that's not fair to make that a cultural thing. That's just human nature. And it's kind of a part of their growing. I don't want to be different from anyone. I need to be the same as everybody. And as parents, we can't take that experience away from them, right? Your heart breaks, my heart breaks. I want to make everything just easy for my children. But the reality is that she builds resilience in walking into school feeling like she wants to like chew her hand off rather than sit at the front of the class and surviving it. Right. The key is when she comes home and she says to you, Mum, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I hate it. And I don't want to go to school anymore. And everyone thinks I'm weird, that we don't go, don't be silly, darling. You're not weird. All she hears is, Mum's not listening. You're not weird. Don't worry about it. It's a strength. It's a power. In that moment, it's really a case of she's triggered. She's just feeling so embarrassed, and really just meeting her there with that. It is really horrible. I get it. I remember when I was younger and this super embarrassing thing happened to me, and just, yeah, I hear you. I'm not going to try and make it better for you. I'm not going to try and tell you that what you're feeling isn't a big deal because it's huge to you. There is nothing bigger in her 11-year-old mind that she has to sit at the front of the class. That's the worst thing in the world. And for you to tell her it's not the worst thing in the world, just tell her that you don't get what she's going through. Yeah. We don't, and we are, as parents of this generation, we are fixated with fixing it. And that's not actually our job. If we constantly fix it, we will end up with a generation of the least resilient children ever created. But we don't have to fix it. But it's kind of like we have these two ways of thinking. Either I fix it, or I talk them out of it, or I tell them it's not a big deal. Because if it's a big deal, I should be fixing it. Kind of meeting in the middle of like, I can hold space for you. I can hold space for you. I can allow you to own it. Often I find with my eldest is that she'll go all the way through something and I'm thinking to myself, you're being ridiculous. That's not true. You've got loads of friends, whatever it is. I'm stopping myself from saying it. I'm literally sitting on my hands so that I don't let the words pop out of my mouth, because that's all I want to say. And by the time she's finished her meltdown, well, I know that some of my friends are really good to me, and she's kind of gone through all the way through her stuff, and she's got there to the other end. And all I was just kind of, yeah, it's really hard. It feels so lonely when you feel like no one gets you, and it's so hard for you. So yes, our neurodivergent kids are going to come up against resistance. All kids come up against the resistance. All of them are mortified by us, neurodivergent or not. They all just want us to like disappear. And it is a big deal to them, and we can just let them have it. And then they build a certain level of resilience, because life is shit sometimes. It is shit to sit at the front of the class and be the one that everyone looks at. I don't want to do it if I was at college. I wouldn't want to go. And we forget that. We belittle. We go, don't be silly. It's not a big deal. But we know that if I said to you, come on, Kate, you're going to the front of the class, you'd be like hell I am.
Absolutely. That's not going to change, is it? Like you say, that's like an elementary part of being a kid, where shame, embarrassment, humiliation is part of our growth journey, and we can't fix that for them.
But we can meet them there, so they don't come home and feel like they shouldn't be feeling what they felt.
Yeah. A big part of something that I've noticed that's really changed with the way I parent, and this has been something over the past few years now, I've sort of gradually been doing it and understanding why I'm doing it, is exactly that, of like meeting them where they are, acknowledging them. So when one of my kids is having a really big sort of emotional tantrum meltdown, and I sort of say things like, I can hear you're really frustrated. I can see how upset you are. I can hear how angry you are. And I can see that you really want to do this thing and we're not letting you do it. That must be really hard. And something just shifts. Like they look at me, it's like this, what? Like, you get it? Type thing, like this quizzical look. And then it all starts kind of like, you know, calming down, and there's an openness there, and there's an acknowledgement. Okay, mum gets it. Mum's not trying to fix it. And then another thing, I had this conversation. I can't remember where I heard this. It might have been on podcast. I can't remember where it was. And there was a sort of a little practice that you can do with like potentially more teenage kids, where they come to us and they're talking to us and they're sort of like ranting at us and externalizing. But before they do that, it's coming to them and saying, do you want advice, or do you just want to...
Mel Robbins.
Was it Mel Robbins? Yes, I think it was.
I use it.
It was so good. It was like, do you want advice? Or yes, it's where they had their kids talking, and it was a really good
great podcast.
Do you want advice, or do you want me to just shut up and listen? And most of the time it was, we just want you to shut up and listen, and just be almost like a bit of a, you know, a boxing bag, and just kind of listen, take it on, absorb it, and try not to fix it. And I asked my teenage kids, and they all said to me, you're always trying to fix it. You're always trying to come up with solutions. And I am quite resourceful, and I am very, you know, let's try and work out a solution. But very often they just want me to sit there, like you say, hands under my bum, not speaking, and then they just walk out the room. So that has been something that's it's been changed a lot in the house. That has helped.
It's a release, right? Like, and I think this is a big thing with neurodivergent kids, because like you say, there's the embarrassment and there's the shame, and they don't want to be different. None of us want to be different. So they go to school, and we've talked about this before about neurodivergence in girls. They mask a lot more. And I guess they kind of, just because of socialization and stuff, they don't have the same outlet for it to go. So if you have a home, especially a safe home, that child will come home, and everything that's been held in will kind of start to come out. So you end up being like, I do not understand this. I can't tell you how many clients I have that go, do not understand. There's no issues at school. They are an effing nightmare at home. And I said, you might not like this, but you are the safe space. So they're coming home and they're almost vomiting everything that they've exhausted themselves trying to hold in the day. And we can end up very, very defensive, feeling like we're screwing up and somehow it's personal and they're attacking us. And if we can remember that whatever happens, the energy needs to come out before there's any space to do any constructive work. And it's not about you. And this is not about being a punching bag, but knowing that you're kind of going to get this rah. And there's no point in ever doing anything in that raw moment, because actually what's happening is kind of a real trigger moment. The brain is offline. It's all coming out. We need to let it go. And then we can step in and do the work. It's a little bit of like, do you want me to just listen? That's the listening bit. Okay, it's all coming out. And then what's been going on? I mean, very often you get the kid get in the car, you go, how was your day? And they bark at you. And the first reaction is, don't speak to me like that. You've immediately shut down what was going to come next. So I always meet that with nothing. And then I'll get maybe a few more barks and I'll be like, you seem really frustrated. And I guarantee you within 2 hours, I will not rise to their mood. Teaches them two things as well. First of all, that kind of behavior doesn't get any response. And also that they're okay, you know, it's like, I let it come out, because otherwise you just end up with the shutdown or more of an explosion. And then usually they've had an argument at school, or a teacher's upset them or something. But the minute you start with the don't speak to me like that, or don't come in with that attitude, it shuts everything down, because we take it personally. We think they've been rude to us, and all they've done is they've brought their frustration home. And we're not meant to be a punching bag, and there is a fine line, especially if you're changing a behavior where you are dealing with a deeply reactive child at the moment, and you start trying to make these shifts, you will experience more for a while. So I have to coach people really hard through that. Like, this is going to be a really hard couple of months for you. Always on the other end of that is a far more centered, calm, sensitive child who wants to communicate and connect.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's so powerful to know that there's, you know, the shifts possible, because I mean, again, I've had this with my kids, you know, coming home from school, and it's, you know, and straight away it goes, don't speak to me like that, I don't deserve this, and you go into that whole victim mode. And I don't want to be that, because I know what it's like. They have sat there masking, conforming, sitting, being told, I've got one of my kids who is like a serial doodler, and she's a picker, and she'll come home and all the shoes have been picked and then tights have got holes in, and she's literally got like doodles all over her hand, all over a computer case. And she's been told by the teachers that she can't do that. And so she is like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Then, like, safe space. So I have to be, and I know I'm doing it. And I go, oh, you're not very chatty. What happened? Tell me about what you had for lunch. And in my head, I'm thinking this is the last thing I would want as well. So like you say, it's coming back to that consciousness, isn't it? It's like almost taking that pause, that stop. What is it that they need from me right now? They don't need me to ask them a million questions, because I wouldn't.
More stimulation. You're stimulating them more. Their brain, they're exhausted. And actually, it's that consciousness of yourself. And also, what am I asking for? I'm asking for the child in us. That's, how was your day? We're like the puppy. How is it? Do you love me? Do you still love me? You've been to school today. Oh, I need you back. We're asking that. Come feed me, feed me, feed me. It's not unconditional love. It's bullshit. It's a great big fat lie. We do not love our children unconditionally. They must love us back. The condition that we love them is that they love us back.
Yeah. I'd love to know if anybody's got any questions, because if you want to ask questions, either put the little sign up, the little hand sign, or write it in the comments. But I really would love anyone to, while Amy's here, because clearly she is a font of amazing information.
I have a lot to say.
Yeah. And you know what, it's so important, this topic. And I wish that this was like everywhere. Like, I wish that this was just part and parcel of when you become a parent, you get to know this information that we don't.
Do my programs, Kate.
Honestly, it's so powerful. And I mean, how do you work with people? Like you say, is it what gives people the biggest shift? Because I know what it's like with group work. We can bounce off each other. So what I guess do you do in your group work, and how do you work one-to-one as well, just so people can get an idea?
So one-to-one tends to be obviously a longer process, and it's very specific to each and every person that I'm working with. So it's, their relationship with their child, their relationship with their parents, the way I work in a group, which actually I see, what I tend to see is the most profound, fast shifts in the Parenting Revolution program that I run, right? So that's my 8-week parenting program, and it's big. And it's because I go straight in with the lessons, like, this is what is getting in the way of your connection, and this is how it's showing up in your life. This is why it is showing up in your life, and this is how you can come into a space of creating that shift for yourself. And as a result of shifting this in you, this is kind of what you're going to expect happening around you. And it's not just your children. Conscious, if we take the pretentiousness out of the language, is awareness of yourself in any given situation. So very often by week 3 of the Parenting Revolution, when we've worked through triggers and we start to understand what the things are that really set us off, people come in going, oh my God, I've just had the most incredible conversation with my husband, or I just sidestepped a huge row, or my boss did this and it was just amazing because I saw myself wanting to do this, and then I realized actually it was this and this. But so the Parenting Revolution as a program, I see the most massive shifts because they're really big lessons each week. So it's 8 weeks and you get an hour and a half lesson on triggers and how they work, projection, how it shows up in our life, our cultural beliefs and how they've affected us, our religious upbringings, how they've affected us. And all of these are kind of directly the way I do it. Whereas with the one-to-one therapy, it's much more of a slow, kind of considered one-to-one process. This is like, probably more like boom, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, I can totally see how this is showing up in my life today. Whereas less of the rest one-to-one's more of a guide. So that's why I always try and get people to do the Parenting Revolution, because I'm like, do the 8 weeks and then come and work with me privately if there's more work to do. But you will find, without a shadow of a doubt, huge seismic transformational shifts in your relationship in your home by doing these 8 classes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're kind of like questioning all the foundational blocks, and instead of just accepting that they should be there, it's like each one, like you say, the beliefs, the family beliefs, and the religion, all of that, all this stuff that we just take for granted and go, well, that's just the way it is. We don't question any of it. And
then sharing it with other people in the group.
yeah,
One of my graduates, who's on the Village, which is my membership program as well, she said on the program, you know what I love about doing this group work, and she was one person who was so kind of, I don't know if I should be doing group work, it's vulnerable, right? She was nervous. I said, I've got you, I'll hold you through it. It's a safe space. We're all in this together for the same reason. You know, we're all coming to this because we want shifts and change and we need a community. And she said, what I didn't realize was how much I was going to heal through connecting with other people's journeys. So I'll hear someone talking about something and I didn't even realize that was a block for me. And it's like, boom, that's incredible. And the way they overcame that is a complete shift to how I now process it. And I've now shown up differently because of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, yeah, that's the group work really does do that. It's not about like laying out your dirty laundry. It's about connecting with other people. We're all in the shit together. All of us, me. I'm certainly not sitting on the other side of the screen away from everyone else, kind of going, well, you see, because I did my conscious parenting journey, I'm now like, you know, completely at one with my parenting journey. No, I'm not. And I'm learning from the people I'm working with. And it is a process, and it's a commitment to a process to be the best version of ourselves for our own joy. I mean, the joy I have in parenting now, I actually like it. And people go, oh, don't you hate the teenage years? And I'm like, no, I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
I'm having a really good time, actually. But isn't your child doing all the, yeah, absolutely. Do not think that I'm doing conscious parenting work and my child is sitting at home and Angel doing her homework and, you know, knitting. No, she's 14. She is bang in the shit and I'm in it with her. And I'm so grateful for it because I'm actually in it with her. And it's quite fun. Yeah. I'm healing my own journey. I'm healing my own teenage years as well.
It's that collective, like you say, that collective energy, isn't it? That healing journey that we're on in the group. People are asking questions that other people are maybe sort of like a bit more hesitant to ask, but we can see it always relates, that relatability. Right. But what you mentioned then about the ripple effects of it, you know, improving relationships, I can imagine healing between, you know, parental stuff as well, you know, our parents. I know that what I see is it's interesting. So my kids are the age that I was, a bit older now, when my parents got divorced. And there was a lot of blame and anger and all different things going on towards my parents from me being an angsty teenager. But now, as the mum of children that age and around the same age that my parents were, there is a lot more compassion and being able to sort of see like what they could have been dealing with and what support they didn't have, and all the things that they must have gone through. And it's just, I mean, all I know is that we take responsibility to heal our side of the road. You know, we look after our side of the street. That 100% has an impact on every relationship that we have around us. It can never not be a good thing. And I was only just talking about this last night over dinner, is that we have to take responsibility. That's this self-responsibility that people are showing up now. They're going to be watching on playback. They part of my community, part of your community. That self-responsibility is only going to have an impact, you know, all around. And I think, you know, just to have awareness, just a small amount of awareness of this is only going to, you know, we think maybe with our teenagers especially, we're not getting there, they're not listening to us. And we walked out the room and we're still talking. But I do believe that what we model behavior-wise is
100%. I mean, how often do we say thank you to our kids? Like really, just in passing, how often do we go, thanks so much for putting the plates away, or oh, thank you for giving your brother that, or thanks for doing your homework without me having to ask, or we just don't. We go, they just did what they were meant to do. And then we're like, I'm so unappreciated and no one cares what I do. We don't. I got told off this morning because I didn't say hello quickly enough.
Right.
But I could have gone, oh, don't be so ridiculous, or well, you never say good morning. And so what I did was I went, morning, I love you, good morning. And it ended up being like some stupid ridiculous joke where she was kind of embarrassed at herself for being a dick. But it's because I've been doing the work on myself. And I go the other way, you know, when I slip up, which I always do, or I kind of can see myself be triggered, I'm on the other side of it. I'm like, you should know better. You're a parenting coach. You know, that self-blame is definitely still there. The discomfort when I'm in a triggered moment to kind of take the time to just stop and do nothing, it's all still there. It's about the space and time between trigger, reaction or response. And I'm noticing that over the last 10 years of training, my trigger reaction is now trigger response. So the triggers still exist, but especially when you've got triggers, if you were undiagnosed with neurodiversity and have been diagnosed, do not ignore the fact that a lot of the things that will trigger you in your child are shame triggers from when you were a child and shamed. I mean, even in a funny way, my dad is, like I said, undiagnosed Asperger's, and my son has mild Asperger's, and things I take personally from him. This is how big it gets, guys. Things that he does in passing that make me want to react, that make me want to be defensive to him, that make me want to make a passive aggressive comment to him that will create disconnection, are things that my father did that hurt me. So it's there. And if I don't understand in that moment that, oh, that's what my dad used to do, but he's not my dad, and and my dad didn't actually not have any interest in me, he just can't connect in that way, and my son can't connect in that way, then I can override that, not shame him from his disconnection, maybe love him a bit more, and maybe even change those neuro pathways slightly for him to be able to know that that love is there, you know? Because otherwise he just creates if I'm defensive to his behavior, then he just creates a wall, which means that he goes into adult relationship thinking that, you know, women are defensive and catty to you, which because that would be my reaction to his behavior. And so then he won't question when he's got a girlfriend later on in life and he's a bit spurgy, as I call him in my house, and he does his thing and someone snaps at him, and actually that's really toxic and quite abusive. He doesn't think that's toxic or abusive. So he starts to live in this kind of submissive, slightly codependent relationship. And I'm then looking at a relationship going, I don't know why he takes that. I don't know why he takes that from her. Well, because you did it to him his whole life. Why wouldn't he think that's normal?
So in that situation where you're recognizing that he is not able to emotionally connect in the way that you want to be connected with, do you then help him and guide him to find a way that he can emotionally connect, or in a way that feels good to him? Because I'm just wondering about, like, say your dad, would he show his love and affection and interest in a different way that you wouldn't have seen socially as the right way? Like, can you see that now? Like, in what way would that be? So you can then almost tease that out of your son.
Well, in a funny way, I have to be aware that I'm asking Remy to show up and connect in a way that I need, and I need to let go of that, because it's not, yes, I can tell myself the story that he would then never meet somebody in life and know how to, but he will. He'll meet 1 or 2 or maybe 4 people in his life that will, and they will be his relationships. So I can kid myself of that ego story because I just want him to love me the way I want to be loved. But really, it's a case of kind of me doing the work to understand how Remy shows me his love. I need to do that work. I need to understand how he shows me his love. And if his shows me his love by, I don't know, like little funny things that he does, I take those and realize that that is his way of showing love. And yeah, many people will not be able to be in a relationship with him, maybe because he isn't hugely affectionate or wants to have deep and meaningful conversations. And I need to understand that when we're having a deep and meaningful conversation on the odd occasion and he shuts down in the middle because his brain is done, that's not him being rude, and that's not his fault. And it's me, I have to do the work, not to be, he's just him. And yes, plenty of people will not be able to be in a relationship with him, but plenty of people will. Plenty of people, I'm not neurodivergent, and I can assure you that most people can't be in a relationship with me. I'm probably needy and all sorts of things. But just because he's slightly neurodivergent is a problem. No, it's not. It's just me doing my work, so I don't have to make him show up the way I need him to.
Yeah. It's beyond powerful, Amy. Thank you so much. I'm just going to read out just a comment here. So yes, thank you. This is so interesting. I wish I'd heard this when my kids were younger. Now they're young adults, and 2 of them with ADHD diagnosis are struggling with direction in life. It's very triggering because I spent years doing the same and never really found anything. Would you be able to just talk a bit more about how not to spiral down into worry about them? I totally understand this. We worry, and we do project like we couldn't do something, and so that means our child can't do it. Exactly. How do we not spiral into that worry that there's going to be these cycles that aren't broken?
You don't have the control over breaking them from their perspective. All you can do is change your world. All you can do is model. Worrying is a deflection tactic. And I'm saying that I worry. I'm not like, worrying is, don't do it. I don't do it. We worry to keep our brain busy, which is just basically like a great way of procrastinating, right? Because you're not doing anything. If you really want to help your child feel the resilience and be inspired to try something, get off your ass and try something. That is what will inspire them, because they will then see it as possible. And it doesn't have to be like some great big huge thing. It can literally be going for a walk every day, going for a cold swim like Kate always does, like finding a motivation to do something that you find interesting, anything. Because the only way we can really guide our children is doing it ourselves. And the reason we focus so much on our children and what they do is so that we don't have to focus on ourselves. So they can, if they do the things that we won't show up and do, then we can kind of appease our guilt about the fact that we haven't shown up for ourselves. But the reality is, show up for you, your kid will very likely do it. Kids believe stuff is possible when they see their parents get up, screw up, fail, do it again, get up, do it again, fail, didn't work, try a different avenue. That's resilience, because all they're looking at is like, oh, shit goes wrong and the world doesn't end. Oh, okay, so that business idea, like they lost everything, but then mum decided she was going to get a job and do that. And then she did that. Oh, okay, so that is possible. Life is possible. Failure is possible. Failure is just a detour to something else. When we try and show them this perfect life, that in a funny way can paralyze them, because they want it so bad, but it seems so unattainable. Because someone once told me years and years and years ago, I must have been in my early 20s, and this really successful guy, and he came over from South Africa with zero money in his pocket. He was like 9 or something. And he was sent over by his parents, and he was super successful, really like happy guy. And he said, I am happy because I'm not scared to fail. So I don't worry about very much, because there's always a solution, and I make a mistake every day. And I was like, that's so true, because we're always just, when we're worrying, we're just trying to avoid and rigidly hold against the possibility of something bad happening, which actually makes us miserable. And the reality is, if we can just live life and let the bad stuff happen, which it will, because it does, and it's life, we can't avoid everything, we roll with the punches, and then you get to enjoy the bits in between. And we kind of need to start teaching our kids that more, because this generation is trying to just teach our kids how to be happy all the time. Really, what we need to be teaching our kids is how to manage being sad. Because that's, being happy ends up not being a joy, because actually if we're happy and we're always worried, half our brain's always waiting for the other boot to drop. So there's no real feeling of satisfaction. Like, shit happens in life. There's not one person on this planet that hasn't experienced hardship on some level. Yeah. If we spend our life trying to avoid it, it's just constant misery. So get out there and do something. Just try something, anything, and they'll be inspired by you. Or do the program. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. I've got someone starting next week who's got a 20-year-old.
It's amazing. I think it's like it's understanding that it's always just about the process, isn't it? Because I was reading a story about someone that won a gold medal in the Olympics, and he'd been working his whole career, and he got on the podium, and he, instead of being delighted, he was just like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Like he said, it was one of the worst moments of his life. I know someone, who sold a business for millions, and he was like, what am I going to do? The fun bit was the building and the failing and the detours and the diversions and the trying. And then he's like, well, now what? And so it's recognizing that success isn't the marker. It's the process. It's just keep learning and growing and evolving.
Well, worry's a bit that as well. I don't know who it was that asked that question about the worry. Otherwise, I would refer to you by name. But if your kids are older, they're living their own life now. Why are you still in that? What are you without that worry? That's what you do. That's part of your process. It's more uncomfortable for you to try and stop worrying and let life be than it is to stay in the worry. Because we're so used to worrying. It's like, that's the hustle as a parent. I must worry. And if I'm not worrying, I'm a bad parent. And if I'm not worrying, something bad might happen to my kid. Not true. But it doesn't make anything more or less likely to happen. It's just your brain being terrified to switch off from that part of your life.
Right. So Nikki's got a hand up. We've got a few minutes left. Go for it, Nikki.
I think worrying is a bit of a sort of resonant thing at the moment. Are you talking about something a bit like Ned Halliwell kind of task positive network type of stuff, where it doesn't matter what you do, go and get into action about something? I'm a bit sort of overwhelmed about what do I do?
Well, worry, it's just that worrying doesn't actually, it's a coping mechanism, right? If I worry about it, I might be staving off the inevitable, right? If I just keep worrying about it, I'm hyper vigilant about it, it might not happen. We can't know that for sure, but we're pretty much, the worry actually creates the suffering, right? Mm-hmm. So you know how they kind of say, give a busy man a job? It's a bit that kind of like, well, if your mind is spiraling, especially if we're neurodivergent, right? So the minute we get on one, unbelievable. It's like we can just sit there in a loop, just keep going round and round and round and round and round and round and round. Now, if you know that about yourself, it can be it feels counterintuitive to just go out and do something that will take your mind off it, jump in a cold plunge, go for a run, read a book, write something down. Because actually part of you is scared to let that loop stop. It's almost keeping you alive, isn't it? But if you know that about yourself, you can parent yourself through that and be like, okay, come on, let's just try it. Just this once. Let's just see what happens. If I don't know if you have young kids or whatever, but even jump in and go, right, kids, who wants a game of backgammon? It can be as little as that. I'm going to stop scrolling. I'm going to stop looking at the television and numbing myself because I'm still quietly in my cycle, right? Anything to break the cycle can be so liberating. Yeah.
It's honestly, Amy, thank you so much. I mean, I've read loads, and I know that I'm sure that anyone that's been listening now has as well. And it's really profound, this conversation. It's so important. So this will be shared. And I really hope that if anybody wants to work with Amy, they can contact her. Can you just give everybody a little bit of information of how they can get in touch with you? And
I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So
it's on your Zoom as well. You can see it as your name. It's brilliant.
Oh yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Well, it's in the chat. And I'm doing a free workshop tomorrow afternoon. If anyone wants to jump on, I can send the link out to them. That's all about the 3 pillars of conscious parenting. So like the 3 kind of key pillars that if we can use them in your day-to-day life, like we start to kind of cultivate these 3 pillars throughout everything, we start to see shifts. It is in relation to the launch of the next Parenting Revolution program, which is starting on the 22nd of February. So if any of you are interested in doing that work, we've literally got, I think it's like 2 weeks until it starts, and it's an 8-week program. So I don't run it constantly. It literally launches, and this is the first one of the year. So email me with any questions. And if you want to work one-to-one, again, email me with any questions.
Amazing. I mean, what serendipitous timing. This was not a marketing plan.
I know, right?
I mean, it would have been great if it had been, but it was all just timing and everything. So I'm just delighted that you've managed to, you know, connect with people, and I hope that, you know, anyone that wants to work with you is able to. Amy, thank you so, so much. Everybody, I will see you very soon. Thank you for showing up, really appreciate it. And I will see you all soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. It's lovely. Thanks, Kate. Mwah. Bye.